You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro Sushi, Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic bootcamp, Moveville University, Pure Chiro Notes, Dr. Alok Trivedi, the Black Diamond Club, Element Mattresses, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Vita Chiropractic, the Universal Traction System, MedZone, Vantage Point Marketing, and Imaging Services. Let's hustle. The Chief Chiro Hustler, and I have Dr. Tom Dickerson over on that side of the screen with me. This episode today is brought to us by Solvent. What they do is they give a kickback of every transaction that goes through your practice back to Palmer Rugby. Pretty cool, I think. So we'll touch more on Solvent as we talk about Dr. Tom and his career as chiropractor. But first things first, let's talk Palmer Rugby. How the heck did you get into Palmer Rugby?
Well, when I got to Palmer, I had a few prerequisites to finish up. I had like 6 hours I had to finish before I got to start Palmer. And so there was the Scott Community College. A lot of the people watching this will remember Scott Community. And I was living in a house about a block from the school, and I knew some guys going to school already. They said, "Hey, you ever thought about going out for rugby?" And I said, "I've heard about rugby, but I know nothing about it." I said, "Come out to practice." So I went to practice, and just like anyone else that had no idea how to play it, I just fumbled through it. But I saw that it was going to be a lot of fun. The guys were really cool, and I thought this is going to be a great thing. So I stuck with it from the very start.
So I know we had a pretty lengthy chat off camera, but who was your coach at that time?
When I first started, Freddie Schofield was the coach at that time. That was in the fall of '79, I think. And Freddie, he probably had about a year left in school at that point.
So what was it like being around Fred at that time?
Fred, to this day, he still intimidates the hell out of a lot of people. Not intentionally, perhaps, but he had a very strong personality, and pound for pound, probably one of the toughest guys I've run into. But yeah, he was very intimidating, very in charge, knew who he was, knew what he wanted, and knew what he expected. Never asked anything from the rest of the guys in the team that he couldn't do himself. But a very strong, commanding presence. And I think anyone that's known him since then or has ever met him would have to agree in that regard. But yeah, Fred's great. A lot of good times with him and the rest of the guys that came through then.
So yeah, Fred actually I saw him out at a big chiropractic seminar back in October called New Beginnings.
Yeah.
And he comes up and he thumps me in my arm. And he's like, he says some explicits to me. "What the F are you doing to yourself?" I go, "Dude, I'm traveling all around the world. I'm spreading the message of chiropractic." He goes, "No, you're not taking care of yourself." So ever since then, I'm on this fitness journey. And since then, I've dropped 20 pounds. And I've been doing affirmations morning, afternoons, and evenings. I've been meditating. I've been stretching. I've been taking Wuji chlorella. And I got Freddied, so I know what it's like.
I've seen Fred in some games. I remember seeing him. He intimidates some of the referees, just to get the ball going the way we wanted to. Yeah.
So let's switch gears just a little bit. Let's talk more about you and your family. I know that you come from a pretty large chiropractic family, and let's talk a little bit about that, and then I'll maybe ask you a few specific questions based on what you share with us.
Sure.
So you come from how many chiropractors are in the Dickerson family?
Well, it actually started with my great uncle back in the mid 1920s. He was the first chiropractor in our family. He graduated in 1925, and we have a large family. And my mom, I think I think she had 10 kids in her family. The five boys, all five of them were chiropractors, and it's just one of those things that just continue to grow and grow. We all got to grow up in a chiropractic family and lifestyle. Saw the beauty of chiropractic, and just a lot of us just continue to go. So I've got uncles and cousins and in-laws that have been chiropractors, and we have over, I've lost track, it's I think 33, 34, 35, somewhere in that neighborhood at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. It's cool to be able to talk to you a little bit about the influence that you've had too. Let's talk a little bit about being able to practice with your dad as well.
Right. When I first got out of school, came to Illinois, which is where I'm from here in East Peoria, and I got to practice with my father for about 10 years before he retired. He started practice here in 1950 or 51, I believe. And like I said, I started practice with him, and he just slowly started to see fewer and fewer patients. I was starting to take more of his patients as he was in the office less. He took care of a handful of people that only wanted to see him because they've been seeing him for 40 plus years, and I don't know if they were real sure about me anyway, which is fine. But ultimately, he finally, his goal was to practice for 50 years. He came a little short of that, but he practiced, I think, for 48 or 49 years before he finally retired, and then got to enjoy life for a while before he passed about 11 years ago. Yeah, so it was wonderful. We never had any disagreements. It was a cool experience. I really, really feel blessed to have had that opportunity.
Yeah, and I don't know what that's like to be able to do that. So I know that's probably a really cool experience for you to be able to actually, go to work with your dad and do the same thing and take care of people. Let's talk a little bit about, earlier we were talking about standing on the shoulders of giants, and some of the things that even your dad had to go through in order to be able to practice chiropractic.
Well, back then, a lot of the guys that went to school, what my father did, went through on the GI Bill. They came home from the war, and these were young guys that they went to war when they're 18, 19 years old, and did that. And my father came back from the war and went to school on the GI Bill. A lot of the guys, I shouldn't say most, I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but a lot of guys at that point in the mid to late 40s were going to school on the GI Bill. So when they came out, the laws were different from state to state as they are now, but some states didn't even have licenses, of course. And a lot of those men and women fought hard to gain licensure in states, or they actually, of course, as most viewers know, some of them spent time in jail practicing medicine with a license. So I think people in my generation and beyond perhaps sometimes lose sight of the sacrifices those men and women made just so that we could enjoy the benefits of what chiropractic has blessed us with over the years. So it's important. That's one of the reasons why I appreciate what you do, is you're helping keep that message alive.
To me, it's an honor to be able to hear the stories and to be able to, talk lineages with you, and to be able to understand like the gravity of what it means for Palmer to be a chiropractic school and to make such a legacy of caregivers in our world. And then, understanding where the Palmer rugby team came into the lineage of the history of chiropractic, and how the history of chiropractic became ever changed because of the rugby influence, and how all these guys would practice chiropractic and learn how to be doctors, and they would also graduate and go home and practice chiropractic back home where they were actually from, and spread chiropractic around the world.
I think that's one of the cool things about chiropractic and rugby. I think we talked about that a little bit before. They're both, at least when I started school back in the early 80s, rugby was it was a whole different thing altogether than it is now. It's grown immensely since then. As we were talking off camera a little bit earlier, chiropractic and rugby, I think, have been misunderstood or underappreciated for certain. Both have grown leaps and bounds. And I think rugby is one of the fastest growing sports in this country right now. In fact, I think that they just win the sevens out in Vegas. They beat some pretty tough competition out there, and chiropractic is continuing to come into its own. We've got a lot of ways to go in that regard as well, but some pretty cool parallels that we were talking about earlier about how they fit together so well.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Close for Chiro, Chiro Sushi, Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic bootcamp, Mooville University, Pure Chiro Notes, Dr. Alok Trivedi, the Black Diamond Club, Element Mattresses, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Vita Chiropractic, the Universal Traction System, MedZone, Vantage Point Marketing, and Imaging Services. Let's hustle.
Yeah, I just want to go, let's turn the page forward a little bit and talk about this symposium. Sure. I know that you said this will be your second one, and you live 2 hours away, so you'll be driving there.
Right.
And I know that you aren't going to be bringing anyone with you. You'll be coming solo. But what does it mean for you to be able to come back home to Palmer and to see some of these guys that you played on the pitch with?
It means a lot. I reached out to one of my brothers. He played rugby as well. He couldn't make it this year, but I've reached out to a couple other guys to let them know that it's important that we go back. I think I get a sense, Jim, that some guys don't go back. I could be completely wrong about this. I get a sense that they don't know that they matter as much as they do. And what I mean by that is I went last year for the first time. I think this was the 7th year they're doing this year in a few weeks. And I got to see a lot of guys that I played rugby with, and of course got to meet a lot of the students that are going through the program now, men and women. They got a really successful women's program right now. But getting back to your question, I think sometimes guys lose sight of how important it is for them to show up. Like them showing up doesn't really matter, and it does. It matters a lot. Just being there and showing support for the rugby program as well as the school. They are missed. A lot of times I think it doesn't matter. No one's going to make that big. It matters. They really should show up. We need to see those guys come back. And that's one of the reasons why I want to go. I'm going to the one this year. I don't see any reason not to go.
Yeah, I think a couple of the big things to talk about is the fellowship and the brotherhood. And I think that's what you get to experience when you come back home. Right.
I agree with you. And that's another unique thing about chiropractic and rugby. Like, going through school as chiropractors, we all went through the same program. We all share that bond. But that's true also of chiropractic, of rugby as well. The time we spent on the road as well as at home, they're playing. I did some of the best friends I have in life are the ones that I made at Palmer, thanks to rugby as well as chiropractic, of course.
So yeah, I got brought into the Palmer rugby family almost 10 years ago now. So I've seen a lot of these amazing guys and that have gone through the old boys and now the future, the new front, like the future leaders that are out there right now that are seeding, that are actually putting a structure and a system together in order to develop Palmer into the powerhouse that it should be, and in order to get, perpetuate the future of rugby at Palmer. And let's just talk a little bit about your experiences with the scholarships back in the day and where we are today with them.
Well, we did have scholarships back then. I think there were 15 scholarships, and there are guys that remember this better than I do. I think there were only a handful of full rides, but then they had the ability to go ahead and split them up if they wanted to, in order to get more guys a little bit of money to help them through, which is what happened for me. As we talked earlier, I got a half scholarship for 2 or 3 quarters, perhaps. I don't remember how long. And half a scholarship back then was $500. It was $1,000 a quarter when I started back then. So I know there's a lot of guys shaking their head right now at that. But the scholarship program has grown immensely now. They've got full rides, and again, there's guys that know more about this than me. Full rides for the A side as well as the women's, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps you know that as well, which I think is wonderful because it helps us attract high level, high caliber rugby talent to come to school. And of course, once they get there, we can churn out some high caliber chiropractors to take back what they've learned to wherever they're from, if in fact they choose to go back home. So it's important for us to support that.
Yeah, and I know there's a couple programs that Matthew Walker has gotten in partnership with, and one of them being Solvent, and
Hmm.
another one being Local Gold. Let's talk a little bit. I know we said we'd dive into this angle a little bit deeper. Let's talk about your presence with potentially changing into using Solvent.
You're right. This I became aware of this a while back, and like a lot of things, it gets put on a shelf, and you think, yeah, I'm going to do that, and it just doesn't happen. Well, when this came up, I started making plans for the symposium again, and to start seeing the emails and the Facebook posts, etc. I'm thinking, the Persolvent thing is so easy. I've got actually, I mentioned to the staff in a meeting last week. I said, check that. I want you to find out the specs on this thing and see about switching over, because it's like you said earlier, it's really a no-brainer. We're going to run those charges regardless. We might as well be running on a system that's going to go ahead and benefit the program. It's kind of like having a savings account that an automatic withdrawal. It's just going to go into an account regardless. You don't have to think about it. So I think it's one of those simple steps that we can all take. That if we did, I'm sure, and you're in touch with Matt on a pretty regular basis, I'm guessing. I'm sure we'd see the numbers going into the program would increase dramatically as a result of that.
Yeah, to me, it's just a matter of promoting. And the more that we talk about it, the more it becomes a conversation. The more
Sure.
it becomes a conversation, the more it becomes commonplace for everybody to just do it. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to touch on that with you during our conversation today. But let's talk a little bit more now about the actual event, the Rugby Alumni Symposium, and what you're looking forward to during that weekend, except for seeing your friends, I know, of course. But I know that you're interested in seeing some of these speakers, and I think also you guys are having a really cool banquet too, right?
Yes, yeah. The banquet was. I hesitate to say it was a highlight because there were so many things during the weekend, but it's one of the few times you get to see guys that played rugby actually put a tie on, and but that was definitely one of the highlights. But they top shelf speakers too, and I think they're bringing a lot of the ones home this year that they did last year. I know they have at least 3 new guys speaking this year. I'm looking forward to it because I've heard really great things about them, and looking forward to hearing what they have to bring. So it's really a cool event from top to bottom. The quality of the speakers and the content they bring is worth the trip alone. But then getting to go to the banquet and rub elbows and get to hang out. One of the things I enjoyed last year, honestly, was getting to meet some of the students and touching base with them and seeing what student life is like now. And then, of course, obviously getting to see a couple of matches was icing on the cake. I got to see a couple of good matches last year as well.
So yeah, I'm just going to go through and do a couple rundowns of the talent that's going to be speaking to us. Deed Harrison, he's going to be talking about chiropractic biophysics. We have Matt Hartenberg, who's actually homegrown talent that's going to be talking about heart rate variability, which I'm really excited to hear about because I know there's a lot of research going into that now and about how heart rate variability is. I don't know enough about it, so I'm really looking forward to hearing this new research that he's going to be sharing with us. But guys like Roberto Monaco that teach people how to become high level communicators and be able to communicate the chiropractic message better. And the extremities master Kevin Herron, I think is going to be a really good one to see. Another homegrown talent, Sokoloff. He's going to be he's a chiropractor for the Baltimore Ravens. Which I think is super cool that we have that type of caliber individual presenting to the group. And I think, honestly, the students get so much out of it, too. The young rugby students, they get a chance to see all these high caliber, talented individuals speaking. And then we can't leave out Freddie Schofield. That guy's going to come through like a buzzsaw. And anybody that ever gets in touch with Fred that doesn't catch the Fred, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. We talked about that on our opening. And then who am I leaving anybody out there?
Yeah, Brad Glowacki is going to be there as well.
Brad Glowacki, he's going to be talking about concussions.
Yes. Yeah, he said, he's speaking about Alan Sokoloff, who I actually went to school and played rugby with as well. Brad's actually he's taking care of a lot of pro and Olympic athletes as well, and he's going to bring some really unique information on how he's dealt with those issues and how we can translate that into what we know is a growing problem, concussion in sports these days. So he's got some really cool stuff I'm looking forward to hearing about as well.
Yeah, I actually saw him speak at CalJam this year. And one of the things that he said is if the medical industry could come up with a pill that could fix concussions, they would. Chiropractors are the answers for the concussion problems.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So, understanding that, that these high caliber speakers, the fellowship, the watching the rugby games, getting your CEs. And one of the other things that I want to point out is you don't have to be a rugby player or have played a lick of rugby to be able to come in and get the CEs and be a part of the weekend.
Right. Exactly. There's something for everyone. The fact that it's got rugby and Palmer, and it just makes it an easy ride for me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, Doc, I appreciate you sharing some of your insight onto what this fellowship and this brotherhood of rugby is for you, and talking a little bit about your family and influence in chiropractic. Is there anything I didn't talk to you about today that you'd like to share with our audience?
Boy, I don't know what it would be. I was actually quite surprised at the breadth and depth of your particular program. I know you're not looking for a plug here, but I got to tell you, I didn't fully realize how encompassing this program is that you're doing, not just for promoting the symposium, but promoting chiropractic. And I just want to tip my hat to you, man. I think you told me about some of the goals that you have, and I think they're very worthy and worthy of our support. So. I'm interested in hearing more about the things you're going to be doing in the future. So thanks so much for doing this for Palmer as well as for the rugby program. I appreciate you, man.
Well, it's all about the hustle. And from the stories I told you off camera, it's been hustle since day one. And, the hard work, show me where the pile is and give me a shovel. Just like the old BJ picture of him with the shovel with the elephant poop. Nothing should be beneath us if we want to grow this future of chiropractic. And we have to take the hard job that nobody else wants, and we have to master it. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to learn from Roberto Monaco is how to master the communication. And if we just take the hard job that nobody else wants and we perfect it, then that makes us an expert. So, 10,000 hours of that and we're on our way.
There you go. I agree with you 100%.
Well, Doc, thanks for spending some time with me. And my message to everybody out there is if you're not using Solvent, jump on board with them. They sponsored this episode today with Dr. Tom and I. And just to let you guys know, you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling.
Thanks,
We'll
Jim.
see you, Doc. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.